Hey, this is a special lecture that I put together for learning how to become a better learner and how to do it faster and smarter. Just a little bit about myself. I am a medical practitioner for the last 35 years, board certified internal medicine, anesthesia, more recently obesity medicine. And I also, in the last 10 years, got my MPH degree, Master's of Public Health. I got really interested in learning after starting to work in the field of global health, starting in 2007 with direct patient care with a group in the Dominican Republic. And then we got, after getting an MPH degree, 2011, did my capstone in Ghana and set up a spinal anesthesia program and taught there for a short time. Then went to Ethiopia, taught at the Addis Ababa Teaching Hospital, then began our own nonprofit and started not only teaching medicine, but also teaching public health programs and working and developing public health programs in Uganda. And then most recently, spending a couple months in South Sudan with Doctors Without Borders, and also getting involved with some teaching programs while spending time there. Currently, I teach advanced anatomy and physiology at the university level, and also teach a medical weight management program for the seniors. What I teach is applied anatomy and physiology. So it's taking anatomy and physiology that's been learned previously and then applying it to patient care, but also applying it to your own life. So it's taking information and learning, teaching actually what to do with it. What I'm going to go through today is just a brief overview of the brain, talking about it, dividing it into our three brains. Silencio Bruno is learning about how part of your brain is talking to you and how you need to quiet it down. Learning, working smarter and not harder. So breaking down the brain, just an overview, you have really three major segments. This top segment is the neocortex. It's the newest, it's your creative brain. Plus, though, it's very judgmental. It's what I call either the Einstein brain or Bruno brain, Silencio Bruno from the recent Disney movie, Luca. The second brain is this mammalian brain. It's the next oldest. It's very quick for reactions, for protecting you, makes quick decisions. It's very social, has a lot of emotions, and produces hormones also for behavior. And then the oldest part of your brain, call it the reptilian brain, and it's the one part of your brainstem. It's where your heart keeps beating and you keep breathing without having to think about it. What I really want to focus on most is this mammalian brain. Like I said, it's full of emotions. It has a strong dependency upon the group. We survive better in groups as mammals. It's home to the autonomic nervous system, the fight or flight centers, and the rest and digest. It's got 3 endocrine glands, and it's also responsible for your short-term memory center. So it's very good at protecting you. The mammalian brain produces these 4 hormones, the serotonin, dopamine, endorphin, that feel-good hormone, and oxytocin, responsible for the love hormone. Those hormones are there to help get you to not only protect yourself, but to be social, because they're released when you're multiple experiences, but also to keep you with the group. And they're very short acting. And so what they do is they drive your behavior. So one of the hormones released during eating, that dopamine, encourages you to eat often and to find safety in groups. And oxytocin is released with orgasm and breastfeeding. So, and it's a hopefully keep you continuing the species. And the mammalian brain responsible for not only learning, remember where that cat lives, but also for making very quick decisions. Let's look at the neocortex, the newest brain. It's great at creativity. E equals MC squared. That's why I call it the Einstein brain. But it overthinks. So the food is good at X, but the service is faster at Y. So you're overthinking. And also very good at judging. That's the part of your brain that is kind of what you'd call browbeating yourself. And also responsible for creating worry. So how you use this as a student, you're taking a test, you're looking at the answers, you know, if you studied well and you've got the storage in your hippocampus and you've learned the material, you're going to have quick recall. But then your neocortex comes into play and you start going over it and you start overthinking. So basically, these three brains work well if you use them as a team and you understand how they work. The whole point of working together is to grow, survive, reproduce, and then, of course, the last thing is if you can get through grow, survive, reproduce, then you can use that Einstein brain for creativity. The problem with that Einstein brain is it can be very overbearing. If you have an overbearing neocortex that prevents you from eating when you're hungry, you don't get those happy hormones released. It develops anxiety, develops high cortisol levels, which is inflammatory, and you can develop eating disorders, and eventually your mammalian brain does rebel. So basically, you need to recognize the strength of each player and work well together. So if you notice who's driving the car, it's the mammalian brain is ultimately what drives the car. So now let's get into learning faster and smarter. The mammalian brain is there for you to learn and to remember. So this is what I want to really impart to you, is to learn how to use your mammalian brain. All of your special senses go directly into the mammalian brain in this structure called the thalamus. And the thalamus takes that information, delegates it. You make decisions to fight or flight, eat or digest. So all of those special senses come directly into the middle part of your brain. And just below the thalamus is the structure called the hippocampus. I have a picture there of the hippopotamus. The hippo, it looks like it's called, actually, hippo means horse. So it's a water horse. The hippocampus has that short-term memory and it's quick for retrieval. Gets larger with more learning and gets smaller with a constant chronic stress. So one of your very good special senses is cranial nerve 1. You can remember cranial nerve 1 because you only have one nose. And the memory is solidified with smells. Cranial nerve 1 is the only cranial nerve that has a direct pathway to the brain, shown here at the olfactory bulb. Going right into the thalamus, and then right next to it cradling underneath it is the hippocampus. So they did a research study. They took two groups of students, essentially a cohort study, two separate groups. One group, the professor sprayed some a very comfortable smell. I think it was like Brut cologne or something on the wall, and gave his lecture without telling the students about the smell. And apparently it wasn't too overpowering. And then the second group gave the same exact lecture in a room where there was no smell placed on the wall. And then he tested the groups with the same exact exam. Well, you found that the group that had the smell in the room had a 95% compared to 90%. So a significant improvement in test scores. Vision, cranial nerve 2, you have two eyes. That's how I remember cranial nerve 2. The optic nerve. The eye beats all your senses for efficiency of learning. So the best you can do is make sure you use a lot of imagery, find pictures, and use pictures to help you remember information. So you've studied for history midterm by reading the textbook and getting a 95% on the exam. The final exam is cumulative. How much of the information that you learned for the midterm will be retained for the final exam? Will it be 10% of what you learned, 60%, or will you remember all of it? The answer is you're only going to learn 10%. You're going to remember 10%. This is a research study where they took two groups of students. The first group of students studied just words. The second group of students studied words and images depicted by this book with pictures. And then they were tested 3 days later. This is called the pictorial superiority effect, picture superiority effect. Those who just studied words had only a 10% recall of what they'd read. But those that studied both pictures and words had a 60% retention of information. So this is how you're using your special senses to learn. What I'm trying to tell you is that taking too many notes impairs your ability to use your special senses. Now let's talk about just a few things about how to make the information stick. And I know this comes up all the time, is how am I going to stop taking notes after all these years, especially the seniors? Remember what I just said, taking notes during class competes with your special senses for attention because it's really hard for your brain to multitask. So basically, I quit telling people to stop taking notes altogether. But what I do recommend, if you have to take notes, make sure you do it with a pen and a paper, not with your computer. This was a study looking at students, how they take notes. And the ones that did significantly better are the ones that took a longhand. The problem with typing is you're essentially transcribing every word and you're not listening to the content. So if you have to take notes, keep a pen in your hand and just take some few notes. And also, if you're taking these notes, you can be watching the professor and noticing the inflection in the voice, noticing what points they think are most important, and jot down what concept you think they're going to test you on. The next thing about is sleep, how to become a better student using sleep. Well, this is some very early rat experiments. about sleep and learning. So they would put these electrodes on the rats and have them run through the maze. And at the same time, they're monitoring the type of brain waves. And then they monitored their brain activity during sleep. And what they found out was that they're constantly running the maze over and over and over again. So they're solidifying their memories during the sleep. And it's during this particular sleep cycle called REM, or rapid eye movement sleep. This is a sleep ring that I wear. And this shows all the different stages of sleep. So it shows that the brain is always active and it's always going in and out of all these different stages of sleep. REM sleep is up here in that light purple. Those memories are rerun over and over again, and your lessons become solidified. Notice how if you'd shortened your sleep by an hour, you would miss a huge section of your REM sleep where you're solidifying memories. Deep sleep is another one that's particularly important for aging individuals. This is when your metabolic waste is removed. And without this deep sleep, you start developing Lewy bodies and associated with dementia and sleep deprivation. So this also, they took a research study with students. They were taught material in the morning, and then one group took a nap and the second group stayed awake. And then both groups were tested in the evening. And the group that took a nap had significant improvement in their exams. It's interesting that you notice right around 2 or 3 in the afternoon, you start getting sleepy. That's your body's natural mechanism for wanting to have that rest period. So the results are sleep does enhance learning. Next, brain responds to the body's movement. So if you're sitting quietly, your brain starts to quiet down. So if you get up and walk, showing this functional MRI scan, showing how the brain starts getting active. So it's important to keep the brain stimulated, keep having mild exercise, intermittent breaks, more alertness and creativity. That's another reason why I put my lectures on YouTube, because if students wanted to go back and listen to the lectures, they could put it on their phones, listen to the YouTube lecture, and be walking at the same time and keeping their brain stimulated. So in summary, learning and making a better brain. So learn to use your mammalian brain. It's used for survival, memory, and it uses the 5 senses. It is your best friend. Quick decisions, releases all those great feel-good hormones. And also learn better with your sleep. Lots of things. And if you want to continue to see some of the other things that improve learning, you can follow the YouTube channel and with the links on the PDFs. And that is the end of the presentation on the learning and just an overview of how the brain works.